Gladiator is one of the most influential movies of the early 2000s, earning Ridley Scott yet another massively praised movie to his ginormous catalog. Gladiator is the kind of movie that actually meets, and in some cases, exceeds the hype. I only saw this movie for the first time a few months ago and loved it. It's a near perfect film with a fantastic conclusion that made it one of those movies where a sequel seemed impossible. But here we are, 24 years later, with Gladiator II out this week. And I've seen them both, so why not have some fun and compare them? I mean, what else is there to do? Judge them based on their own merits? In a similar fashion to my ranking videos, I'm going to be ranking these movies based on certain criteria. With that being, story. Is it entertaining? Characters. How do the characters drive the story forward, and do they do it well? And lastly, how's the action? These are Colosseum-based films. They better have good action in them. Each category will be scored out of 5, and whoever has the higher total, well, is the better film objectively, because everything I say is fact.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Now, with the rules in place, let's dive into the Colosseum and see which film is better, Gladiator or Gladiator II. Gladiator is the type of film you watch and expect nothing else to come of it. It's the perfect standalone film for its time. So when a sequel is announced and actually comes to fruition, it's kind of wild to even think it's possible, but here we are. After rewatching this film though, it is truly such a great watch. I think a lot of this film's strengths come from its story and its characters. Maximus is a very well-made protagonist, not just because he's badass and has a ton of iconic lines. Are you not entertained? It has a lot of layers to him that make him the iconic character we know him as. We can't have the iconic lines without the very personal reasoning for his actions. How this film opens us up to the main plot is fantastic. Maximus defeating the Germanic tribes in the Battle of Vindobona was a great way to open his character because we see how involved he is in battle, how his leadership inspires his troops, and how determined he is to see his family again, all within the first 20 minutes. So when the rest of the story follows along those guidelines, it makes it very interesting. Marcus Aurelius telling Maximus he'll be the next in line for the throne, only for Commodus to kill his own father out of jealousy, is next level pity that's hard to top. It makes for a very compelling main character because we watched him command armies, have respect for his rulers, turn away from power, making us root for him. But then all of it is taken away, stripping him to nothing, which causes that underdog instinct to kick in as a viewer. And it's why I love this kind of storytelling aspect. It's why Spider-Man 2 is one of my favorite movies ever made. It has a very similar story structure. Having Maximus look at his dead wife and son hanging in front of him is so brutal to watch and is so devastating. You can't help but root for the guy after that. Having Maximus be given time to be a slave too lets us dive deeper into his character since he has no power anymore. We see how composed he is under pressure, what the years of leading armies have done to him, his interactions with other slaves and gladiators too, people who are of lower status, and how respectful he is to them. It's truly a testament of gradual build-up for his character, and it's done really well. I love how this story feels so naturally told. Like, it feels like all of the events of this movie happen with a purpose and not just to fill time. Seeing Maximus fight in the smaller arenas, moving his way up to the Colosseum, then organizing a coup, and finally fighting Commodus just felt real and natural to me. There's also countless scenes in this movie between its characters that I thought were great. Maximus is a fantastic protagonist, but Commodus is a fantastic antagonist in this movie, man. The shit he does is wild. You can see how slimy he is from the first few scenes he's in, and how his actions are dictated by his emotional immaturity. He disposes of Maximus because no one will follow him unless he's dead, and kills his whole family too. Then tries to murder his own sister's child if she doesn't help him, forces her to almost bear his own pureblood child, and then says this to Maximus as well.
They tell me your son squealed like a girl.
Dude's a fiend. I love that although his actions are terrible, you can see it's all based on a sense of love. He wants to feel loved by many, and since his father didn't show him any love, he tries to get it from countless other people, including his sister, who he is just always uncomfortable to watch whenever he's with her. Speaking of his sister, Lucilla is a great character too. I thought that her connection with Maximus was great, and that she had her own motivations and actions that suited her. She felt like her own person. Many side characters felt like this. Even Digimon Hansao's character had so many great scenes with Maximus Maximus, talking about their views of the afterlife and when it's their time to go. Moments like these make the action much more thrilling to watch because there's more stakes on the line. Every time Maximus goes out into the fray, he's going to survive so he can kill Commodus and get his revenge. It's a passionate revenge tale that works. Every action sequence in the Colosseum is a ton of fun to watch. The moments where Maximus gets all the gladiators in formation so they can destroy the Roman chariots is so thrilling. Maximus fighting the former champion while tigers are prowling around was awesome too. Also, the opening battle sequence against the Germanic tribe was very well done. Like, that was a great way to open the movie. But without a doubt, the final battle against Commodus, where Maximus is barely holding on since he was stabbed right before, only to kill Commodus with his own blade, then enact the proper senators to rule Rome right as he dies, was poetic and magical to watch. I got chills rewatching it. It's so good. This film is top tier, and the music in this film too is incredible. In terms of story, I'd give this movie a 4, the characters a 5, and action a 4, bringing this total to a 13. But it goes without saying that this movie is good. It's been known to be a fantastic movie for decades and won countless Oscars. But how will the sequel fare? Well, let's find out. Yo guys, we're on the road to 10K, so if you like this video, hit that subscribe button. The quicker we get there, the faster I'll get my Harry Potter ranking video out. So if you want to see that, hit the subscribe button and we'll get back right to the video. Okay, well, if you've been patiently waiting to hear my thoughts on Gladiator II, you've made it. Are you going to be excited for what I have to say? I don't know, but I guess it's best to rip the band-aid off quick and come clean. Gladiator II is okay. What? Hey, look, I'm not going to lie to my audience, okay? I have to be truthful.
You need to leave!
But in all seriousness, I think that term is very appropriate for what I have to say about the rest of this film. A lot of the story beats are damn near identical to the first one, so its story is kind of lackluster in that aspect. Essentially, the story follows Lucius, the son of Lucia in the first film, who has become entranced in another culture. He fights battles for them against the Roman Empire alongside his wife. I feel like you can see where this is going from here. Wife dies, Lucius wants revenge, Lucius becomes a slave, gets very far in arena battles, yada yada yada, it's very similar. If you liked the story for the original, then you're going to like it here, since it's pretty much the exact same with some minor differences due to character motivations. I thought the importance of Lucius and his relationship to Rome was interesting, but not the most compelling, since a lot of his hatred for Rome comes from off-screen progression after the death of Maximus in the first film. Speaking of Maximus, this movie confirms that he's the father to Lucius, so I guess him and Lucia got busy before he met his wife in the first one. A major aspect of this film's story revolves around revenge, similar to the first. However, I felt that Lucius getting over his revenge quest was a bit abrupt here, and wasn't nearly as satisfying as Maximus with Commodus. A gripe I have with this movie is the amount of villains or antagonists we see here. In this movie, there's 4, but really 3, as one is not really a villain, one is just looked at as a villain from Lucius's eyes. Pedro Pascal's character Marcus Acacius is somebody who issued an attack against Lucius's people in the beginning of the film that ultimately got his wife killed. So for half the film, Lucius wants Acacius dead for murdering his wife, but when fighting him in the gladiator match later on, he doesn't want to anymore because his mom told him that there's much more to him than meets the eye, essentially. I understand the point of adding layers to someone's character, and also having Lucius see past Acacius's faults and getting over his own rage, but it happens very fast that it felt off to me, at least. Other villains include the emperors Geta and Caracalla, if I'm saying that right, who serve no purpose but to be genuinely infuriating to watch because they're very annoying constantly. And lastly, Denzel Washington's Maximus, who's this slimy gladiator promoter who works his way up to a high politician status and tries to destroy Rome. He's easily the best character in the film in my opinion. He had a lot of interesting dynamics with other characters, and he felt new and fresh. He didn't feel like Proximo from the first movie, he felt like his own character. Lucius felt like an off-brand Maximus, even down to the monologues he provided, and his quest for revenge didn't feel as interesting since it changed throughout the film. The first Gladiator worked so well because we knew the piece of shit Commodus right from the beginning, so Maximus had one goal, where here, the goalpost shifts throughout the film and Lucius's motivations change too. Most other characters I didn't really care for, even Lucia, who felt forced to be in this movie. Pedro Pascal's character was All of the returning cast from the first felt obligated excited to be here. And there was no standout slave characters that really jived well with Lucius like Maximus did with Juba. Also, the action sequences here are pretty cool. However, the use of CGI is very noticeable in some scenes, especially ones with water. It just looks more artificial. Also, I don't know what it is, but for some reason, there's this look to this movie that just feels worse than the first one. I can't place it, but if you watch this film, it sometimes looks like you're watching a play instead of looking at a representation of the real Roman Empire like the first movie looked. I know I've kind of ripped into this movie a lot here, but these are my criticisms for it. I just wanted y'all to know about. I don't think this movie is utter garbage by any means, or that it's a waste of time. Like I mentioned before, if you enjoyed the first film, you'll enjoy this one. I just find it to be a case of, if it's just like the first, why wouldn't I just watch the first one, you know? In layman's terms, this movie feels like Ridley Scott got a ton of money to make a new film, but he just didn't have the balls to reboot Gladiator, so he did this like soft reboot type thing and called it a sequel. I find a lot of decade-old sequels have this same problem, where it's packaged as a sequel, but it kind of just regurgitates the same plot and almost like the same movie from the original. Oh, and one final nitpick here. This film starts 16 years after the death of Marcus Aurelius, so presumably 15 years after Maximus died. And tyranny still resides in Rome. So you're telling me, after everything Maximus did, nothing changed? This kind of bothered me because it basically means Maximus died for nothing. Like, literally nothing changed after he died. What didn't Lucia do during this time period? She just sent her kid away and then did nothing for Rome that Maximus wanted them to do after that. This is what I'm saying, like, even the bare bones plot of this movie is kind of flat. Like, there's so many questions. In terms of story, I'd give this movie a 3, characters a 3, and action a 3 as well, bringing this film to a 9 in total. And in comparison to the first, yeah, the first is better by a fair margin, ultimately having much better characters, story, and just overall action set pieces as well. What do you think of my ratings? Did you enjoy Gladiator 2 more or less than I did? Did you like it even more than the first one? Let me know in the comments below. I'd appreciate it if y'all liked and subscribed while you're down there. Again, we're on the road to 10K, so hit that subscribe button so we can get there as fast as possible. Thanks to the Wub God, Drop of Vanilla, and Big Old Bear for being members of the channel. That's all from me today, guys. I'll see you in another one very soon. Peace out.